Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to share some of the movements that I work on to help me to reduce the extension in my lead wrist in backswing. So if this is a movement pattern that you feel plays your game a little bit, the movements I share today help me significantly. Hopefully they'll help you as well. Thanks once again for joining me. So today we're looking at the movement patterns that I implement to help me to reduce the amount of extension that I get in my lead wrist in my backswing. It's a movement pattern that is more extreme when my body's not moving so well, I haven't been practicing as much. My mind just hasn't been in the place putting the awareness on the movement patterns that help me the most. So for today, I'm just going to share in simple, the way that I look at it, the things that I have to do a better job through backswing, and I hate to say it, but maintain more of a flat wrist. So that's just one of those terminologies that we have in golf that seems to correlate with good movement, although we should always keep in mind the configuration of people's wrists is hugely different. That's why even on the highest tours, the highest levels of golf, you'll see guys with movement that is just not so similar to one another, and they still play and perform extremely well. So for me, what I have to work on through backswing is if I'm starting to notice myself getting a little bit extended in that lead wrist, or cupped as we sometimes get to, we name it in the golf swing, what I have to focus on is how I actually move through my lead shoulder, my lead upper arm, and my rib cage. And I'm just going to go back to a little bit of what I would call movement philosophy that I've really started to implement in my game for the last 3 or 4 years and in other players' games, is that internally we want to be able to move pressure from the left side of our body into our right side of our body to allow the trail side to really open up in backswing. And that's a really good facilitator of rotation. So in allowing the left side here of the rib cage to compress, it drives the pressure into the trail side of our rib cage and opens it up. And how, now you might be asking, how does that influence the wrist? So going back to the rotation element there, if I do a good job through here, you can now see that the rotation being better down the line's a great visual for that. You'll see how much I've actually rotated my body here. Because of that improvement in rotation, it takes the stress off the wrist. And if I don't rotate, for me, I will tend to compensate with the rotation through my lead arm, my lead forearm, and the wrist will start to pronate more, which then later in the backswing moves into extension because I run out of range in pronation. So it starts to look a little bit like this. So in the start of the swing, if I can initiate a good movement across this lead side and open up that trail side, the rotation improvement I get there allows my lead arm to move better and not have to compensate through the backswing. So a little bit detailed there, but for me, that's what I have to work towards. So as far as the movement that I have to focus on, I like to keep it as simple as, if I was to hold a ball in my left hand, I'm going to work on through here, the hand working almost down my toe line away from me, and I'm going to keep my elbow more at the club on the ground there. At the same time, I'm just making sure my head doesn't move too much to the right. So I mentioned in some other videos, a good reference I like to have is keeping the head just inside the instep of the right foot. So that's the movement there that I'm focusing on. If I was to drop the ball and then just allow my hand to face in front of me, that's the wrist position that I'm working towards. Okay, so one more time there, get into a good setup position. I want to be able to move at my best, so I need to make sure I'm set up well, even though it's just a little movement exercise we're going through. The ball is in my hand. I'm going to allow it to move down the club, which is, I would say, almost, it's not halfway between my feet and the ball. Where I'm stood now, I'm probably at maybe only a wedge and 9-9 in difference, but I'm going to allow the hand to move almost down the club with where it's positioned there, keeping my head inside my right foot and keeping my elbow at the floor. So the reason the elbow is important for me is because if I don't rotate at my best, I tend to compensate a little bit like this with the elbow points out in front of me. So here, drop the ball, then take my grip, and that's a good reference where I want the wrist. So after a couple of rehearsals there with the ball, I'm going to pick up a club and try and replicate that feel. So again, like I'm feeling how my hand moving this way, my arm moving this way, in the closing of the left side of the rib cage, the opening up of the right, allows me to rotate well. And then at the same time there, in this position, I can feel as though there's a lot less movement that's happened around that lead wrist and much less extension. So there we go, that's the position I'm looking for. I can even rotate through there. So now let's try and hit a couple here with that feel. So in here now, make sure I'm set up good. Yeah, I love that feel. For me, I mean, I really could focus on just the head staying inside the foot and the elbow at the ground and the wrist. They're my three main primary factors, I would say, for me. I mean, that one felt really nice. Just gone dead straight. Obviously just pitching there, going at a slower pace, just pitching allows me to just stay more focused on I mean, if I picked three areas to focus on there, where I wanted my head, where I wanted my elbow and the wrist wheel. So I got my awareness on three different parts of the movement. Going at full speed is going to be really difficult for me to get the feedback that I want to get. Yeah, it feels really good there. Little toe there, but I was very clear on the feel back here that I'm trying to attain. Let's try and hit one with a little bit more speed for you. This is not something that I've just started working on. It's something that I'll go back to. So, I mean, if it's your first time out practicing it, probably going to take you a little bit longer to get used to it than I'm really showing now. There we go. Nice. That one felt absolutely beautiful. So if you're struggling with a cupped wrist or too much extension with your lead wrist, maybe worth looking at the start of the move away and how your in particular lead elbow is moving in relation to the ground. Looking at just being aware first of all of the left wrist position where we would want it, but then just that ball exercise there with some of the points I gave, I found extremely helpful. You can play around with it at home, on the range, really simple one. Give that a go.